Hey, y'all, welcome back to Unlikely Disciples. I'm your host, Della Chris. I'm excited about today. We're talking all things singleness right now for believers, how it is out here in these streets. And obviously, I am not single. I've been married since I was 12, not 12, but 22. So I got married really young. So I invited my friend, my co-worker. Her name is Jocelyn. Jocelyn, say hi to the people.
Hi, guys.
So we can just have a good conversation about this because even though I'm not single, it's something I have been noticing a lot. And I told Jocelyn, I said, oh, this is different. So we need to talk about this. And Jocelyn has been doing such a good work at our church, just like trying to gather singles and create safe space for singles. So this is on her heart. I think it's more than her just being single. I think it's just something God's calling you to do in this season. So I'm excited to jump into the conversation. You ready?
Yes, let's do it. Okay. I'm excited.
Tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Okay. What do you want to know? Well, no, I'm from Maryland originally.
She always going to start with that.
I have to, because I have to make it known. Like, you got it. It's a different type of vibe, right? On the East Coast. I just have to say it. I just have to say it.
Here she go.
It goes into the story. But I am 26. I'll be 27 in September, which is, oh my gosh.
That's
like,
crazy.
Where did time go? I'm almost 30. It's crazy.
You are not almost 30 for the record.
I am. Okay. Like when you get past 25,
you're almost 30.
You're almost 30. Like every year is almost 30, I'm telling you. But yeah, so moved here 3 years ago. It'll be 3 years in the end of March.
Okay.
End of next month. So very exciting. I was not in ministry before coming here. This is not what I had planned for my life. That's and the real. Lord turned it upside down, but for a good reason. Yeah. So yeah, I've been working at our church for 2 years. It'll be 2 years, or no, yeah, 2 years. And it's just been exciting. I do a variety of things.
Jocelyn does everything. She's one of those people that's good at everything, and so we asked her to do everything.
So, like she said, I do a lot of things. But the singles ministry team is something that the Lord has laid on my heart since I've been here, and I'm just excited to journey through it. I am currently single, clearly, if I'm on the show, but I'll talk a little bit about how I got there. So actually, this is interesting. A lot of people don't know this part of my story because I don't share it that much. But before moving to Texas, I was in this situationship with this guy.
We're going to even unpack that. Even that's different for me. There was no such thing as situationship right? When I was in this.
It's so
in the
different, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it's this guy that I thought was my soulmate. Like, and using the word soulmate. Like now on this walk in my Christian journey, I'm like, oh, all the things that I used to say and these things, I'm like, oh, this is a lot, right? But this guy that I just knew was going to be my husband. I had met him I think it was my sophomore year in college, yes. My sophomore year in college, I had met him out at the grocery store, and I saw him. I was like, "Oh, he's cute." And then my friends was like, "I bet you won't shoot your shot." And I'm a girl who's not scared, so I go after what I want, right? Yeah. So I was like, "Who won't?" So I shot my shot, pulled down the window. Hey,
not the window,
the window, and no scrub. That's what was given. I'm like, come on. So I started talking to him, and we just became good friends, like great chemistry. We had a lot in common, and nothing came out of it at first because I ended up getting in a relationship. So we just were friends. And then one day I was driving back to college from a break, and he was driving back to college. Crazy stories, right? We end up stopping it's like a midpoint in between a thing. We both stopped at this Chipotle. I'm in line. Mind you, I'm in a relationship, so I'm not checking for anybody. So I'm in line. I'm like, oh, that guy at the front is cute. But I'm like, no, whatever. I get to pay for my food. He already is, or like he's at the cash register. I pay for my food. I see him walking at the corner of my eye. I can see him walking towards me. He's like, Jocelyn. And I look, I'm like, I'm not going to say his name. And I was like,
shout him out.
I was like, we're going to call him Sam for this. No, let's call him. Let's call him
Bobby.
Okay, Bobby. That's my dad's nickname.
Oh,
that's so weird. Ben. We're going to call him Ben. I was like, oh, Ben. And he was like, oh my gosh. I was like, what? How you been? And it was so crazy because I'm like, what are the odds that we both met up here at the same time? And then he had a new number. So we ended up exchanging numbers or whatever. I guess you could say I was cheating kind of because I was in a relationship. But no, I mean, we were just...
No, you were just living your
catching
life.
up.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short with him, we were talking on and off for 5 years.
What? From that point?
Yeah, from that point.
Oh, wow.
Well, before that. So we were on and off talking for 5 years. Before I moved here, like, I had moved across the bridge, is what we call it in Maryland. When you're from the country, the city is across the bridge. So I moved up there. I didn't tell him I was moving because I was like, I'm done with him. He playing games with me, whatever. I finally told him, and we met up. And he just wouldn't commit. He would not commit to me for whatever reason. Wow. And he would say all these things, like he loved me, he had so much love for me, but he wouldn't commit. And I remember crying out to God. I was like, God, the only way I'm going to get over this man is if you deliver me from this thing. Yeah. So that's what really jump-started, like, okay, after I cried out to the Lord about delivering me from my feelings from him and getting over him is when I was like, all right, I got to get back into following God. Like I grew up in church all my life, but like never pursued God like that, like how I am now. So that's what kick-started that. So I came here not heartbroken because I was like, oh, the Lord was like, okay, cool, I heard you, and it was it. Cut him off, didn't look back.
Wow.
Yeah. So I came here single to Texas, and at first, when I first came here single, but before I came to freedom, I was still very much so in the world. Your girl was
in the streets.
In these streets. So I had a little fling, would you say, in Florida.
What are you doing? Going all the way across the nation?
No, my best friend lives in Florida. She's from Florida. Okay. So I had a little fling in Florida. But before I ended that before I got baptized, I had my little Jocelyn's last hoorah.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, that's it. So
and you got baptized. Okay.
I got baptized, and then
So let's start there. Let's start with you getting baptized, because one of the things I want to talk about specifically is I know there's an issue with singleness like everywhere, right? Like people are just not getting together. But for me, what's breaking my heart is like even with believers, like there's like singleness is just different. It's like believers, like obviously y'all people are still getting married, all these things are happening. But for me, I'm like it's just different.
It's
right?
Very different.
Like I don't see people going on dates. Like I was at a conference and I was asking the girls, what are y'all struggles with dating? They were like, ain't none of us dating. I'm like, nobody in this entire room is dating. Like that's weird for me. So what do you feel like are some of the common misconceptions for singles dating, like Christian singles dating right now?
Well,
no, what? Christian singles right now. I said Christian singles dating. Gay single, they dating. Maybe they are single, whatever. So yeah, what do you think are some?
Well, one, I think you gotta address the misconceptions with Christianity in general first, because when you go to dating, like, well, one, as a Christian woman who's educated, who has a job, who has all these things, we start to look unapproachable to men, is what I've heard. Like, oh, we're successful. Oh, we have this thing going. Then when you say you're Christian, the minute you say you're Christian, they already think you're locking everything down.
Yes,
which
you are.
I am. Right? It's on lock, right? So in their minds, they are cutting it off. So the real thing is right now with dating for real, I'm gonna be honest.
No, yeah,
the men want to have sex. They want you to throw it at them. So when you say you're a Christian, and then when you start to really talk, because a lot of men will say they're Christians, but then when you start to talk to
everybody
them,
got different definitions.
They got a different definition. When you say, well, are you practicing celibacy? They're like, no. And then you're like, at that point, you have to choose. Am I going to cut this off? Well, what's my point of talking to you if you're not going to do this celibacy thing with me?
Yeah. Or,
okay, I can, like, it's whatever you want to choose. And I think that's a struggle for Christian women right now.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are trying to practice this journey and this walk. And then you got a lot of men who are like, no, I'm not there yet. And it's a struggle because it's a lot of men who are openly saying they're not there yet.
But so
I'm
is that new though? Because men wanting that is not new.
No, but men saying I will not talk to you because of that is a big thing now.
They're more bold with it.
Yes.
Is it because it's more readily they can get it for where they want it now?
This whole city girl, I joked and said that I was in these streets or whatever, but that city girl life has created such a problem. Like this whole thing of, oh, I can just get sex whenever I want. I don't have to. If I'm a great woman to someone, but the only thing that would stop a man from dating me is that I'm celibate, he could throw me away easily because he could go get the thing that he's looking for. Wow. So they're not like interested, and God could literally put me in front of a man and be like, that's your person. But if he's not willing to die to his flesh to say, okay, I'm gonna be celibate in this season until we get married or whatever, you're my person. That happens a lot. They're willing to forego the good thing for a quick thing. It's a lot of not dying to the flesh right now. And I think a lot of that is things that we don't teach people, how to die to your flesh, what that looks like. We don't have these conversations a lot. So I think people are confused about it. And I won't say it's not all men. I don't speak about all.
None of this is all
none
men,
of this
guys.
is all.
Please don't come in the comments.
Please don't. Because I do see a lot of Christian men that are very vocal of their celibate journey and like them.
You see a lot?
Okay, not a lot.
I said a lot.
Let me take a lot. A lot is a stretch, but I have seen
You've
like
seen
people.
It.
There's some TikTokers. There's some people who are popular who talk about it, which helps to put it in hindsight for men. So it's there, but it's not a lot. So yeah, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. And it's also, I think people think that Christianity is boring because they think it's a lot of restrictions and they don't understand that it's protection versus saying you can't do something.
That's good.
So women, like, I'm speaking for women because I'm a woman. So when, like me, it's like, oh, I don't do that. Oh, you're boring. No, I just have boundaries and standards.
Well, and then it's the delayed gratification, right? So it's one thing to assume, oh, this Christian woman don't want to do nothing with me, so she's not going to be, let's be honest, I think part of the fear is like, I'm going to have a boring sex life. But it's like, well, no, I'm just asking you to be my husband first.
That's
and
it.
then we can just do all the things.
Because
you know what I'm saying?
That's
like, the two don't go together. Like, just because I'm a Christian and I'm saying, like, I'm going to honor the Lord in this way, don't mean I'm trying to be boring when it is game time.
Okay?
Yes.
And I think that people don't realize that. Like, we're not saying this is on lock forever. I'm saying this is on lock for my husband.
Period.
That's that.
Yes.
And it's an interesting thing. Also, I think a big struggle, too, is for women who were not celibate before, who have decided to be celibate. I'll go into that because I want to talk about that. So in my last relationship, that was a big thing. Because it was like, well, you're not a virgin.
He didn't get it. He was like, why are we doing this? Like,
you're not a virgin. So why are you making me wait?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
wow.
That's a tough conversation to have. It's like, boy, if I didn't reverence the Lord and love him, I could pull my pants down for you, but that's not what I'm meant to do. And I know why. Like, now I know on this side of my journey what the importance of waiting for marriage is.
Well, even if and so you said, now I know on this side of my journey, even if on that side of my journey I knew, but I still fell short of that, I also felt the disconnect from the Lord. I felt the lack of peace in my life. Like, I felt all these things. So just because I get where what he's saying is like, well, girl, you didn't save it anyways for your husband. It's not about that, homie, because I still want peace. Like, and I think that's what it is too. Like you said, we do a poor job in the church teaching, like, it's not just, purity culture. And I think we went, you throw the bathwater out with the baby, right? Like, the baby out with the bathwater, right? Where it's like, purity culture is toxic. And I agree. I can see certain parts of that, but we have stopped in the church teaching like the benefits of it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So now you just got this young woman in the street saying, no, I'm not going to do that. And the man's like, well, why?
Why? Yep.
Instead of him being raised up by godly men who are saying, this is why. This is the goodness on the other side. So I think, that's a good point.
And that's a big thing. Because before, I grew up like hearing, oh, no, don't have sex before marriage. Don't have sex before marriage. All of that. And it's like, okay, like as a human being, we're disobedient people. Like, so when someone tells you don't do something, you're like, well, why?
The
like,
flesh.
The flesh is curious. It wants to see why. But instead of giving like the importance of why, like, when you are having sex, you're entering into agreement with someone. You are entering into a covenant with someone. And then when you have sex with multiple people, you are married to these people, to their feelings, to their emotions, to these things that they're dealing with. We don't teach that. And I'm like, okay. So as a Christian woman, trying to navigate and teach a man about all of that, it gets to, they're like, oh, I don't want to have, Like, why are we even talking about this?
Well, it shouldn't be a Christian woman doing that.
Exactly.
It should be other Christian men doing that.
Yeah. So it's a gap. But I'm realizing there's a discipleship gap with men right now.
And women, yeah.
And women. But I'm talking about men because you see more women in church. You see more single women in church. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
There's more single women in church than single men. So there's a huge gap. So it's like, okay, the women are learning, but the men aren't catching up at the speed that the women are learning. So you got these women who are learning to practice celibacy because this is the reason why, but the men are coming in at the tail end. Then they're meeting a woman who's already on that journey, and then it creates tension there.
So do you, in general, I know we're talking about the discipleship gap and stuff like that. Do you feel like the church does a good job at supporting singles? Like, cause we had a little argument we were on the phone. I was in the car. You're like, see, that's what I'm talking about. This is what y'all do. So like, how's the church doing in supporting singles?
I don't think there's a lot of support. One, because how do I go? Where do I even start? I think one thing we don't realize especially because there's a huge gap in singleness and like dating in the church, like all of that, right? So what is heavy, and specifically our church, there's a lot of churches that are the same way as well, but there are a lot of married couples. Like we are a church of married people. We are. Yeah. So then for singles, everyone's like, well, be content with this season, but all you see is married couples. So it's in your face. Like, on social media, like I had to take a break from social media. This was real because all I kept seeing was marriage. Yeah. And when you desire something and then all you keep seeing it in your face, it's like, dang, I can't even breathe.
Yeah.
Well, you can't escape that in our church. Wow. Because every time you turn around, it's marriage. And then let's talk about this. Then you tell people who are used to having sex, who are used to having this intimacy that, you got to wait till marriage. But then, like, we don't talk about how to get through with those desires, those things that you may be feeling, all of that in this journey while you're waiting. And then you got some people, which this is about to be tough. There's some people who you see and talk to have been waiting for years, like 10, 20 years. That's discouraging to a single that's coming and is like, okay, I'm waiting on this promise for God. So you got all these mixtures of things. And then it's like, okay. And then everyone's like, oh, the best way you can get through this is by serving the Lord. That's our favorite thing. Keep on pressing. Serve faithfully. Yes. It's like, keep pressing. You got to just keep your eyes on God, which you do.
Keep your eyes on Jesus. Yes.
You got to keep your eyes on Jesus. But we don't talk about the intimacy with Jesus. And that's a difference. Keeping your eyes on Jesus and being intimate with Jesus are two different things. Me keeping my eyes on Jesus is, okay, I'm going to come to church. I'm going to be active. I'm going to serve. I'm going to join groups. I'm doing all that. Being intimate with Jesus is saying, Lord, I am horny. How do I get past these desires that I have? Lord, today was a rough day. I saw all these couples at church during marriage night. I was serving on marriage. This was not me. Please don't. This was not my prayer yesterday.
Oh, okay.
No.
You were there, and I was like,
I was there, but I had the Lord has already worked on my heart. So I had a different admiration of the night. It was like, Lord, you moved in this place. So it's a different way. But that only comes with maturity with God. Because before I probably would have said that. Like, Lord, I was around all this, something that I want and I can't have yet, right? But that's like the true intimacy with God is bringing him those feelings and him becoming your husband while you're waiting for your husband. And what does that really look like? And I think no one talks about like the comfortability of really being vulnerable and open with God. Like we can talk about these things all day, but if I don't bring it to God first, why would I even talk to you about it first? Like I need to talk to the Lord about these feelings because he's the one. You're not going to send me my husband. Right. The Lord's going to do it. So that's a big gap, is teaching people the intimacy with Christ. And then also, how do you navigate these things? Like people are dealing with lust. People are dealing with like fleshly things. People are dealing with thoughts. People are dealing with misconceptions. People think they have to have it all together to be married. And we don't teach the benefits of marriage, like financially, spiritually. Well, let me talk spiritually first.
Okay, so you think as a church, we need to teach the benefits of being married?
Yes, because
that would push people who aren't desiring, who are being lackadaisical and not pursuing the women in marriage and stuff that would push them. Okay.
Because I think it's the conversations. Like some men think, oh, I don't need to be married. Like, again, it goes back to they can get whatever, they can get their needs
They said,
met,
I'm good where I'm
right?
at. Yeah.
But we don't talk about, okay, what are you getting when you become one with someone? Like, what happens? Like, what is that experience? Like, everyone talks about marriage, but then also here's the other part. A lot of people are scared of marriage because there are a lot of marriages that are failing right now too. So it's a tough season as a single because some people are like, I don't want to be what I see. And then there's some people that like, I want that, but I look around as a woman and I'm like, there are no men to get that.
There's so much to unpack.
It's so much.
There's so much to unpack. So let's talk practical. What are some things that the church can do, like the capital C church, not just our church, y'all?
Yeah.
The church can do to position. Well, here's my thing. What are some things the church can do to get these people married? Like that, because we can talk about like how we can support you in your singleness, but I'm about arranged marriages.
I'm about arranged. I love a good arranged marriage. Listen, I love that. And we need to get more about it.
We do need to be about it. And then even for me, one of the things that I do, I be asking people, are you single?
Yes.
I need to know. I need a roster. And I tell them I'm married because it gets weird if I start with that. But it's like, are you single? Like, okay, where are you at? What are you interested in? To your point, like, yeah, some people, there's no leap in them. And I'm like, oh, I'll be trying to connect my friends. They're like, okay.
Yep.
Like, there's no leap. There's no desire. But to your point, that's as morale falls in our society, it's like I can get everything that I could get in a marriage outside of a marriage when that is the biggest lie the enemy has ever told us, because you cannot. You can show me a couple that's been together for 10 years, the same that my husband and I have been together for 10 years, right? Living together, shacking up. I will tell you right now, their level of intimacy, the blessing and favor over their life has nothing compared. It's nothing compared to ours.
Yep.
Nothing. I'll say that, like, I don't care where they stay. I don't care how much money they make. No. What they have is not what we have.
No,
it ain't the same.
Seriously.
So like how can we get these people together? Like, is it cheesy to have like a single night and be like, all right, singles?
Well, men don't come to that.
They're like women's conferences.
Men don't come to that. So that's not a good idea.
Okay, there we go.
And I think we do that all the time. And everyone's trying to crack this code. The capital C church is trying to crack the code on singleness. And the enemy is attacking marriages. The enemy is attacking this, like the enemy's hand over keeping these men relationships. Like, they're like, oh, I don't want to go to church. Yeah. So for us to put on an event at a church where men are already saying they don't want to come to church is not a good idea. Okay, so stay there. They don't want to come to church. So I'll know, here's the issue that I say a lot of single Christian women fall into. They're not coming to church. So should I just settle for a secular man? Right. Because I need a body next to me. So how do you navigate that? That's the hard thing. Like, I think Christian women have to realize the power of God. That one, God doesn't need our help. So you don't have to put yourself in position. One thing that I learned in reading Genesis over again is that literally God brought Eve to Adam. So you don't have to do anything. Eve wasn't even birthed yet. She was taken out. The rib was taken. Like, she was brought to Adam. We don't have to get in position, as people say. People are like, oh, well, you can't meet your husband in the house. Well, that is true. I thought you were about to say, I was like, where's this going? No, that is true. You cannot be like, okay, Lord, drop him from heaven right now in my living room. Like, come on now. But he might drop off an Amazon package. He might drop in that person, the driver could be the person, right? Yes, but God doesn't need our help in orchestrating that. And I think if we fully surrender the desire for marriage and the desire for a spouse over to God, we give him room to show his glory and his power. But when we try to take it in our hands, that's when you get into the mess of like, okay, well, I'm not meeting them in church. Where would I find these men? Do I settle for a secular man? And that's a hard conversation, because those secular men do need to come to church. But not every woman is built to bring every man to church. Like, well, and missionary dating ain't it. It's not. We had a pastor tell us missionary dating ends you up in a missionary position. Come on. And it's true. Like, missionary dating ain't it. And I think too, like, before even dating, like fostering relationships. So like just friendship, right? So you can be friends with a secular man and bring him to church as long as you are strong enough. Yeah. Because you may not be strong enough. You got to know your season. You know what I mean? But you can bring it. And here's something I thought about too, Jocelyn, is like, we were talking in our staff meeting
with our pastor. He's like, where are these men? And I said, they homeless.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real thing.
Yep.
Like, we've always known, and we're talking black men, right? Like, and it sounds like I'm being funny or petty. I'm not. I promise I'm speaking truth. Like, we've always known black men are like disproportionately locked up, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But then I was talking to someone, and she was like, girl, I saw so many of our men homeless. And they are. And so I thought about even you're talking about Adam and Eve, right? And how God gave him a work first.
Yes.
Then his mate, right? And so it's just like men are lost because they don't have their work, their life's work. And so when you go back to the church and you go back to discipleship and our role in singleness, I think about how like our role starts before we start telling these men to go find a wife. It's like, no, when they're 16, 15, start telling them what their gifts are, showing them how they can make a living for themselves. Because then they have confidence in that. And that came from the church. Then they're like, okay, this worked for me. So let me follow the way the Lord wants me to do all of this other stuff, pursuing a wife. And then they trust the fact that a man who finds a wife finds a good thing. They trust that because they're like, oh, okay, this has helped me this far. Yeah. And so I don't think it's just a singleness issue. Back to your original point, it's a discipleship gap.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah. And I think when we fill that gap, we're going to see increases in marriages. Yeah. We're going to see increasing like dating in the church and see more people coming together in this natural way. But I also think we have to do more of the putting people together. Yes. And it's the hard conversations. Like, we have to stop being afraid of talking to the people in the church and like, hey, y'all been dating, like, why aren't you interested in this person if they're not? Like, this person, y'all seem like y'all would be good together. Yeah. What's up? Yeah. And then it's the conversation of the people who are dating. Why y'all not married? Yeah. Like, what's going on? And it's not rushing them to marriage, but like, if y'all been dating for 3 years, what are we doing?
Especially if you're grown.
Exactly. Like, what are we doing? Are y'all having sex?
Right.
Like, we gotta ask these tough questions.
Well, and here, living together is a big
That's
thing,
a big
Jocelyn.
thing. Yeah.
It breaks my heart.
Yeah. And I'm one of those people, I don't believe in shacking.
Girl.
So I just, that's an automatic no for me.
And no judgment, right? Like, Maya and I weren't perfect before we got married. But the living together thing, I think, is like the biggest spit in the face to the beauty of marriage. Mm-hmm. I think it's an insult.
But you know what our culture is saying, Della? Our culture is saying, well, how am I going to know how they are? They don't what people are saying now is like, well, I don't know how I would wait because I don't know how it's going to be when I marry this person and live with them. Why would I wait until the wedding to move in with them and see how they are and be around them? I'm like, I'm not understanding the logic here.
Well, I mean, to the flesh, it makes perfect sense, right? Like, I'm going to test drive the car. I'm going to try it out before you buy type thing. But the supernatural doesn't work like the natural.
Exactly.
And so if I want, everybody wants to try the natural way of natural, right? The flesh's way of building a relationship, but then they want the supernatural favor of God on their relationship. It doesn't work that way. So it's like, oh, how I'm gonna try it out? No, you're not gonna try it out. You're gonna seek the Lord and you're gonna have intentional conversation with this person. You're gonna date intentionally. And are you gonna know everything that they do wrong or that they do right about how they live? No, you're not. When you get married, you're gonna seek the Lord and how to keep it's a dependency. Yeah. Nobody wants a dependency on the Lord. They don't want that. They want to try everything and make sure everything is perfect. No. There's a certain dependency that you have to have on the Lord to be married, to date, to do all the things. So if I depend on the Lord and trust him, hey, this is the man that you have for me, Lord, I'm gonna trust you and see how I'm gonna tolerate his socks being on the floor. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the same dependency.
Oh, the shacking gives people a way to escape if they want to.
Period.
That's it. Like, it's the same with not settling down and putting a ring on the finger, because you still have this way out when you're fully committed. And we do this with God all the time. Like, that's why people don't go all in with God, because they're like, oh, if I go all in, that means that if people know my name at church, that means that if I don't show up, someone's going to reach out to me. It's the same way with dating and pursuing someone. If someone knows that I'm interested, they're going to hold me accountable. It's an accountability issue that we don't want as people.
Nobody wants accountability.
Nobody wants to be held accountable to anything. So this whole living together before we're married is like, okay, I can leave and it won't be a problem. But if I marry you first, I'm in this thing. It ain't no leaving.
Yeah, or I can leave. It's just more complicated.
Right. Yeah. It's a tough thing. It's definitely a tough thing.
Okay, so I have another question. What advice would you give to someone who feels like they're running out of time? to get married. Like they're single and maybe they're getting older, because that's a real thing too.
That's a real
I know women
thing.
who are in their 40s and they're like, I desire to get married, but I'm running out of time.
And they want kids.
They want kids.
We can't. I think this is one thing we do as a church is like, oh wait, the Lord has done this for all these people in the Bible, and it is true, and God will do it for them. But also, we got to think about the science. What science, Stella?
I was just thinking how old those people live to be.
Okay? So we don't talk about that gap. And then we're like, oh, you need to trust on God versus science too. Like you only need to worry about God. You only need to worry about God. Which you do. God should be the one leading everything. But we also have to talk about the scientific things. Like what happens when you are in your 40s trying to have a baby.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing so much. This is such a sensitive topic. And
it is.
I'm going to stop laughing because this is real. And here's why I'm laughing, because we can be so ridiculous in the church.
But that's what I'm
so ridiculous. Look at Abraham. It's like, hold on.
Yes. And we'll like study all the barren women in the Bible. I'm like, you know what?
But here's why. I'm done being foolish and laughing. But listen, here's why that makes me mad. Because I get what you're saying, even science. But here's what it looks like to trust in the Lord when you're in your 40s. And I'm talking from such a place of privilege, right? Mm-hmm. But here's how I'm saying we have to like, how do you say, like, remap it, or just here's what it looks like to trust the Lord in your 40s. Trusting your Lord in your 40s when you're single and when it comes to children. Don't tell the person, well, look at the Bible. They had kids at all ages. No. The likelihood of this woman and moving into her 50s, it could very well be that she may not have children.
Yeah.
I think the different message is it looks like to trust the Lord, trust the fact that He is doing something intentional in your life. Yes. To where maybe He's giving you this full life that with children you could not do at that moment. Right? Trusting His timing sometimes looks like that. Or sometimes I know this woman. She got married for the first time ever, I think in her 50s. And she's always been in ministry working with young adults. When she got married to her husband, he had young adult children. The Lord gave her young adult. The whole time He was equipping her. So I think we got to start changing. Don't be just telling people.
Yes. That was going to be my answer. Okay. I'm sorry I got into that because I think that's a big thing.
I was cracking up.
No, I got into that rabbit hole. But I think what we do is we help people have a perspective shift.
That's good.
Because when you look at singleness as a season versus a sentence, your life will be different. The walking through the journey will be different. We often look at it as it's a sentence and the Lord is punishing me or whatever they think about it. But if you look at it as it's a season that I'm in and God is doing something, and I trust that God wants the best for me. He knows the plans. He knows everything that about me before I was even born. He knows all of the hairs on my head. He knows He is the writer. He's the author. He's the finisher. If we start pushing and reminding people of those things, it becomes more palatable in knowing like, okay, it's not here yet, but it's to come. If He promised it, His word will not return back to Him void. Like we got to just remind people.
If He promised what?
If He promised, not everybody's going to be married.
Okay, I had to make it plain for the saints.
Not everybody's going to be married.
Another disjustice we do, like in the churches, like, oh, well,
no,
that's not in Scripture.
It's not for everyone.
He's not promising you a spouse.
No,
that's not it.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jocelyn, what do you do on weekends, on holidays, that are like couple? What do you do when you're like lonely? Or like you were craving, like what are some practical, let's get real. What do you do?
Throw glass. I'm kidding.
I did not expect that to go that way.
What? That was like, what are you saying? Honestly, Della, I'm still navigating that.
That's right.
So I don't have the full picture of what someone can do. But what I will say is, again, you have to be vulnerable and like really intimate with God in it, because He will give you and remind you what you need to get through that. I'm in a season where my sister is engaged, getting ready to be married. So I'm seeing that all in my household. So it's like, okay, how do I feel content in this season by also waiting with expectation from God? Because He has promised me marriage, right? So I'm just like, okay, what does that look like? And some of it is, honestly, Della, this is the last thing I'm gonna say. It might take a little while, but this is the last thing I'm gonna say. Um, it's not that every single person is lonely. It's not that. But when God has placed marriage on your heart and giving you that desire, you start to miss your rib. Like you feel like, okay, it's not that you're empty. It's this longing for this person that you can't get in a friend, that you can't get in a different scenario. It only comes from a spouse because they know you. They are graced for you, right? So you miss that person that's graced for you. So how do you navigate that? I can only say that what's helped me is taking those feelings and being completely vulnerable to the Lord, and then find out what do you like to do for yourself? What do you like to do to have fun? I'm still navigating that, so I don't know. But doing those things and being comfortable, just being open and honest about where you are with your selected few. You got to have friends who can walk with you that are single, and then married friends. Like I'm so grateful for Della, because she hears all my rants. She be picking me up when I'm crying. Then she'll give me some hard, tough love. But you got to have all of that because seasons are tough.
I bet.
This season is a tough season.
Yeah.
So you have to have people who can help you navigate it. But also you got to depend. I'm saying what I said that is annoying. You got to depend on the Lord.
Go to the Lord.
Give it to the Lord. Put God first. But no, seriously, you do. You do.
So, and you live a very full life, Jocelyn, and I think that helps. Like when I look at you, I'm like, I think I would be single like you're single. Like you are serving the church. Not just the church, like you serve our pastor's family so well. Like you spend time with his girl. Like you're mentoring. You're always like you're going above and beyond with your job. Like you're just living a full life, and I love that. I love that about you because some people pause, and you're not pausing your life.
No,
it's like for what?
And the pause is where the heartbreak happens.
Exactly.
If you slow down, the enemy has foot. Yeah. Like if I slow down, the enemy will tell me you're not worthy of love. Yeah. You're not. He's going to speak these things to me. So I have to remind myself, and in my serving, in my pouring out into others, I'm reminded of like how good God is. Like I'm not doing it from my own strength. Right. I'm doing it from his own. I'm depending on him. So I have to live this full life. Yeah. Because if I didn't, like that's where you feel lonely. That's where you feel like this is a sentence versus a season.
Yeah. And this is going to sound so petty, but I love that you dress so pretty. That could be a whole podcast in itself. Because I'm going to be really real. I get tired of singles complaint, Christian singles. Hey, it's so hard out here. And they look raggedy. Now, saints, people are going to come for me with this. But it's just like, I used my singleness or even like my stay-at-home mom season to just look at what do I like to wear? What looks good on me? How do I like to do my hair? And I think that is one of the things that you can be intentional about in your single season.
Yes.
So,
look cute for yourself. It don't have to be for anyone else, but for yourself. I love clothes. Yes. I've always been a fashion beauty girly. I've always been that type of girl. But like you need to find that now because when you start having kids and time gets quick and you gonna be looking like don't look about where did that person go? She's still here. And remember, you still got to pull her out.
You got to.
So you got to start now. Yeah. Get cute for yourself and be cute for the Lord. Yes. Remember, you're married to God. That's what we got to talk about.
I don't think I like that. I don't think I like that. You're married to the Lord. God. Like, that's one of those annoying things people say.
No, it is. No, it is. It is.
Okay. This is my last question. As a married friend, what are some things I do that are like annoying or frustrating to you? If you can't think of anything, that's okay. Because I know I'm a really good friend. For me?
No, it's not just from you. But you know what? One of the big things is that y'all have been married so long, and not even just so long. Like I'm just looking at my newly married friends too. Y'all be like, "Oh, my husband's not," and it's not about saying your husband, but you know. Y'all would be like, "Oh no, why are you lifting that? My husband does that." I'm like, "Baby, Where's mine? Because you think that I can just call on this invisible man to lift this stuff for me. I got to do that myself.
Well, no, if my husband is around, you call on my husband.
No, I know that.
Okay, I'm making that plain.
But a lot of times now, like, it's this whole thing of like, no, you should be letting a man do that. And we don't have a man around to do that. So we don't have that luxury, right? We don't have that luxury. That's one. I think before
can I say something on that?
Yeah, go
without
ahead.
you losing your thought?
Oh Lord.
I'm trying to say this in an appropriate way. I think this is where this is probably the wrong way to say this, but borrowed husbands is important. Here's what I'm saying. I don't want to get this to be weird, but I'm huge on when my husband is with me and I have friends that are close to me. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna say they're your husband too. That could get out of control. Yes, but you get us, like, there's certain things that I benefit from being married. I think we got to get back to as believers. Like, this is what it looks like to live in community. So like, if I don't change my tire and my husband's there, you don't change your tire. Mm-hmm. We're together. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. And I think we've gotten into this competition thing where I remember one girl in a small group said, I think you were there when she said, I don't even know what it's like to interact with men, because anytime I come around like married Christians, they get weird and stuff. So I've never even been in a safe space with godly men. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I'm like, no. Like, if my sister in Christ is there and you know what I mean, you get the same benefits. So I think we got to get back to that.
Yeah, we do. You don't do a lot to annoy me. Like, I don't, and about marriage,
everything else.
I love her so much. I think for some people, it could be the conversation. Like, our church is more free about the sex and talking about Praise sex God. And marriage. Hallelujah. Because it's a gift and it's a beautiful thing. Freed, yeah. So for some singles that are struggling, that could be hard for them.
Oh, I thought about that Sunday. I was like, that was probably a hard Sunday.
That was so hard for some people. Yeah. I look, again, I'm not trying to talk about myself as this big person, but I'm in a different season and a different journey. So those conversations are real. And I tell Della all the time, I can't wait to get married for many reasons. And one of them is for that. So, but for some people who are struggling with that, having a lot of married couple friends who are more vocal and active, that could be triggering for them. And
so is that trigger?
No, it's not triggering for me, because I'd be like, girl, get him, get your man. I'm a big cheerleader for my friends. Get that in. Yes. No, I don't have a lot that triggers me for marriage, besides the point of one thing. What did I tell you that time we were planning marriage night? We were trying to figure out who was gonna serve, and I was like, we need to ask all the singles.
Get
and
all the singles, they ain't doing nothing.
I was like, wait, why do we assume that singles aren't doing nothing? That's the big thing, is that married people think that singles have all the time in the world.
Y'all got a lot of free time.
Yeah, we don't. I don't have a lot of free time. That's why I'm not dating right now. I don't have a lot of free time. But no, seriously, don't assume that every single has a lot of free time. True. It's not true. We don't have all of the time in the world. We do have more time, but not all of the time in the world. Because people will be like, you ain't doing nothing. Until I show them my jam-packed schedule. They're like, oh.
That's funny. Well, this was a really good conversation. Thank you, Jocelyn.
Thank you for having me.
No, this was fun. I hope this was helpful for y'all. I just wanted to talk through it. Know that I am praying for y'all. Yes. Singles, like, it is hard out here, all jokes aside. Yeah. And I'm praying just for a revival of godly relationships, godly marriages. Yeah. Like, I want to see that for you. It aches my heart when I have wonderful friends that are very deserving of marriage. And then I look at it like, ain't no options. And I look and I'm like, oh yeah, it's slim pickings out here. You know what I mean? So I'm just praying for a revival in godly men and godly women, raising up godly children once they get married. Yes. I want to see it.
And it's going to happen, y'all. I believe in faith. Like, the Lord has been stirring something in me about this, and he's not letting it up off of me. Yeah. So it's going to happen. We just have to remain steadfast and in prayer, because it's bigger than just the marriage part.
Yeah, it is.
It's discipleship. It's getting in community.
It is.
Yeah.
So I will drop Jocelyn's information below. And then also our church, if you're in DFW area, we'll be having some single events that Jocelyn's putting on. Yes. They're going to be so good. I'm excited. I won't be there. I might be there. I'm going to help serve. Because I think we don't be coming through to serve.
Exactly.
I'll be there to serve. But I'll drop it below if y'all are interested. But yeah, thanks for joining us. And I'll see you in the next podcast. Bye.